A very good morning to everyone. I hope I am audible and visible to you all. So let me just get the signal that yes, I have gone live. So yes. So a very good morning to everyone. Welcome in the class and let's crack CSIR UGC NET together. You're watching this video on the platform of Unacademy, and Unacademy is one of the India's largest platform for the preparation of CSIR UGC NET Examination. The topic of today is community ecology. Before beginning with the topic of today, let us have a small introduction about me and about Unacademy. So I'm your educator Farida Johar Bandukwala. I have a teaching experience of 10 years. I've qualified MP SLET examination in year 2018. If you are opting for Unacademy for the preparation of CSIR UGC NET, what all things you are going to get? You are going to get daily life classes so that you will be always into that momentum of study and you can ask your doubts and queries directly with the faculty members. The syllabus will be quite structured so that you can complete the 13 units in a well-defined span of time and you should not skip some of the important topics. The live tests and quizzes are taken so that you can evaluate yourself that how much you have learned so far, and whichever category you are opting for, you will get unlimited access of the videos in that particular category. Unacademy tries to take the free live classes on the platform of YouTube and special classes. So this class you are watching in the YouTube free category. The classes which are done on YouTube are completely free. You just need to subscribe the channel, and the name of our channel is Let's Crack CSIR UGC NET. For special class, you need to download Unacademy Learning app from the Google Play Store. After downloading that, make your account and use my referral code FB01 for getting the access towards all the special classes which I am doing. So do not forget to use my referral code FB01 for watching the free live classes on the special platform. So you can watch my classes as well as the classes of other educators by using my referral code FB01. Then there is this plus subscription. This plus subscription is a paid subscription. So this is a subscription where you will get all the topics of CSIR in a well-defined, explained manner. And for all the upcoming classes, short-term courses, crash courses are being conducted so that you will be in that mode of learning the whole thing in a small span of time. Recently, a major discount is going on in the subscription. For 12 months, it is going to cost you 11,550 rupees, and for 24 months, it is going to cost you 16,800 rupees. But the twist is not yet over. If you are using my referral code FB01, you will be getting an additional 10% discount. So do not forget to use my referral code FB01 for getting an additional 10% discount. By this discount, the 12-month subscription is going to cost you 10,395 rupees, and for 24 months it is going to cost you 15,120 rupees. So that was a small introduction. Now coming to the topic of today, that is community ecology. Community ecology. This is the topic of today. So we are going to deal this topic under following heads, that we are going to see what is the definition of a community, definition of community, then views on community organization, views on community organization, then community structure and organization, community structure and organization. So these three things we are going to deal in today's class. Sorry for a little disturbance around me. Though, so the first thing is community structure. How are we going to define community structure? Let us see this. Which thing will be considered under the community structure? So any definition of community is almost vague, but the relevant features of a community are required to define that community. Require that an assemblage of species that coexist together in a habitat and how they interact. So what we need in community structure, we need an assemblage of species which coexist together in a habitat and how they interact with each other. So relevant features are important whenever we are talking about community. Relevant features of a community require assemblage of species which coexist in a habitat in a habitat and they interact. So what are the words which you need to remember in this sentence? You need to remember species, coexist and interact. Only these two words are going to give you the real meaning of a community structure. So this we have understood what is a community structure in a simple manner. Now let's come to the definition, the working definition which people give. So what a community structure will be called as. Now you know that what is a community structure. We just now to reframe it in a beautiful manner in a presentable definition. So a collection of plant and animals, a collection of plant and animals population that interact directly or indirectly or indirectly. So it's a collection of plants and animals population those interact directly or indirectly. Like if humans, they try to consume the non-veg food, they try to consume lamb or they try to consume chicken. So where these lamb and chicken, they are getting their feed, they are getting this feed from plants. So that is the indirect dependence, and direct dependence we have on the non-vegetarian food if we are non-vegetarian. So it's a collection of plants and animals which interact directly or indirectly. So basically what you need to know is species, the coexisting together and interacting together. So this is just a literal definition of the community structure, but we need to know the real meaning. So just two words is going to give you the real meaning, that is species coexist and how they interact. Now an association is a plant community possessing a definitive species composition. So what is association? Association is a plant community possessing definite species composition. We are going to understand this in detail also. Now let us talk about various types of communities. Okay, so first type of community that we are going to talk is autotrophic community. Autotrophic community. So we know what are autotrophs, isn't it? We know what are autotrophs, those who are capable of making their own food, right? Those are the autotrophic species. Now we are saying autotrophic community. So a little change in the word is there. Autotrophic plants or autotrophic organisms. Instead of organisms, we are writing community. So autotrophic community require only energy from the sun to derive the process of photosynthesis. And what all things are going to come in autotrophic community. Definitely plants are going to be the major part of autotrophic community, but they will include forest and grasslands specifically. Forests and grasslands are autotrophic community. They do not depend on outer sources. They are self-sufficient. Maybe if we are talking about their animals, so those animals, they are dependent on the plants, but plants are the ultimate energy capturer from the sunlight, and that whole community is complete in themselves. So autotrophic community, what all communities will be coming in this? Forest and grassland. So we are not saying only plants, but we are saying forest and grasslands. That means that all the animals will be coming in this category, autotrophic community, because they are self-sufficient. I hope I'm able to tell you the definition properly or the literal meaning. So autotrophic community, all the forest and grasslands are going to come. And then heterotrophic community. Heterotrophic trophic community. So the word itself is telling those which will be unable to gather all the food required by themselves, such as organisms that inhabit a fallen log. If a tree is fallen, if a tree has been fallen down and now it's a dead, so fallen log depend on the autotrophic community for the energy source. Now they are not self-sufficient. Something else is going to come over there and decay it. So they are not self-sufficient. So heterotrophic community, they are not self-sufficient. Not self-sufficient. Like imagine we have a garden, and in that garden we have limited number of fungal spores coming from the outer environment and everything, and suddenly because of some heavy rainfall or wind, one of the tree falls down, and now its contact with the root is completely cut off, so that log is now going to decay. Now this log will have a different kind of population on it, so that different kind of population surviving on that log is called as heterotrophic community, which depends on the autotrophs, right? So example for this is fallen log. I hope you are understanding the example. So autotrophic community and heterotrophic community. So not only plants but animals are also going to come in autotrophic community. And when heterotrophic community we talk about mostly the animal species, those which are not autotrophic in nature. So all the communities have certain characters that define their biological and physical structure, but these characteristics actually vary from space and time. There is a variation in these characteristics, biological and physical structure, according to the time and space. Biologically it can change, physically they can change because of temperature, because of humidity, all these things they change, right? So these things you have understood, that all communities have certain characteristics that define their biological and physical structure, but these characteristics can vary from season to season, from month to month, or in a small span of time they can differ. So I'll write this sentence also because this can be important, that all communities have certain characters, have certain characteristics, that that define their biological and physical structure, but these characteristics cannot be constant. These characteristics vary both in space and time. Both in space and time. Remember that they are not constant. All communities, they have certain characteristics, but they vary. So what word you need to remember in this sentence, it can be an important sentence, that they have certain characteristics which define biological and physical structure of a community, but another thing is it varies in space and time. These are the words which you need to remember with this sentence. Now another thing that we need to talk is guild. What is a guild? Is there anyone who is going to tell me that what is a guild? A guild is a group of species within a community that interact more strongly among themselves than with the others, using habitat or food resources in a similar manner. So they are going to interact within themselves. Moreover, they will interact within themselves rather than interacting with the other members of the community. That is a guild. It is a very important term which you must remember for exam. So it's a group of species. It's a group of species within a community, that interact more strongly among themselves, very important, among themselves, than with the others, whenever it comes to utilizing habitat or food resources, resources. So remember this thing, guild, what words you need to remember in guild is interact among themselves, interact among themselves. Guild, strongly, like not 100%, but strongly, interact more strongly among themselves. That is a guild. Okay, remember this word well. What is a guild? Now, classification of most of the communities in a large part is based on the structure of the plant community or association, because that is the main thing from where the energy is coming from. So classification of most of the communities is going to depend on the plant community or their association. Why? Let us write this in the heading, classification of most communities largely is based on plant communities, majorly plant communities, because that is going to determine that what all things can be eaten, which animals are feeding on them. So plant community is the basic key point to decide that what all type of other species are going to interact in that community. So it is largely based on plant community. Why so? What is the reason? We have just seen the reason, but we have to see the reasons in detail. So why so? So plant represents most stable living component. Represent most stable living component of a community. Most stable living component of community. Why do they represent the most stable living component of a community? Can you answer me? Why are they so stable? Is there a specific reason to it? Yes. Why? Because they don't have mobility. They lack mobility. So what happens when they lack mobility? They must cope with the prevailing environment. They cannot run away. They have to be there. They have to cope in the prevailing environment, and therefore they are the excellent indicators. If there is any change in the plant community, it indicates the type of the environment it is living into. Like if we are sitting over here and we are breathing normal air, so what will happen? We won't be able to directly guess that what is the amount of carbon dioxide, nitrous oxide, or anything in the air. But growth of certain bioindicators such as lichens, such as growth of high amount of C4 plant, these all are the direct indicators of the type of air and environment they are surviving into. So they lack mobility and they are the excellent indicators, and they have no other option than coping with the environment. Like if in my city presently I'm feeling very cold, I have option that I can move to some other city. I can move to some other city for a certain period of time, come back or settle anywhere. Those all things can be done by us humans. But a plant community, it has to cope up. So it is the most stable community. Now, characterization of community is based on two things, that is biological structure and physical structure. So we are going to see that characterization of community. We have seen it depends on two. So characterization of a community is based on biological structure, that what all species are there, biological structure, and it depends on the physical structure. Biological and physical structure. Let us understand this in a very simple manner. So biological structure, it's a mix of species. So what all types of species are living will come under biological structure, and physical structure will include the physical features of biotic and abiotic components. Like if we are saying physical structure, we are just not going for sunlight, then temperature, then moisture content, then salinity, then land or mountain or valley. No. When we are talking about physical structure, we are going to include the physical structure of the biotic and abiotic environment, that what kind of species are prevailing, what is their size, what is the size of those species, how much space they are occupying, these species, how much space they will be occupying. These all things will come under physical structure when we are going to characterize a community. So physical features of biotic and abiotic environment. Both of the things are going to be included in the characterization of a community. The form and structure of terrestrial communities are largely defined by what? Obviously, we are seeing plants, so it is largely defined by vegetation, including the growth form, their vertical height, their horizontal space occupying, how much space they are occupying, and what is their biological structure. So the form and structure of a terrestrial community will largely depend on the forestation or the vegetation it is having. So the form and structure of a terrestrial community, of a terrestrial community, of a terrestrial community largely defined by what? Vegetation. And vegetation, what all things will be included? Growth forms, vertical, horizontal, and biological structure. Now there is another term which is coming now, that is Ronquio's life form. Have you ever heard this? Ronquio's life form, what is it? Ronquio's life forms. Classification of plant life is relation to the height and penetrating tissue above the ground, penetrating tissue above and below the ground. So that is the Ronquio's life form. That is a classification based on relation to height, that is above ground, and the height is occupying below the ground. So embryonic or meristematic tissue that remain inactive over winter or prolonged life period will also be included. So perinating tissues such as buds, bulbs, tubers, roots, and all these things are there. So Ronquio's life form is based on what all things? There are basically 6 life forms which are included in Ronquio's life forms. So first of all, we will see what is Ronquio's life forms, and then we'll be seeing the 6 life forms. So what is Ronquio's life forms? It is a classification. It is classification of plant life. Classification of plant life in relation to height and perinating tissue. Perinating tissue above ground. Now, have you people come across the word perinating for the first time, or you know this word? So Ronquio's life form, it is the classification in which there is a relationship between height and perinating tissue, right? So let me add some of the slides. Give me a second, just a second. So have you come across the word perinating for the first time? So what is the meaning of perinating? That is the curiosity. So perinating is any kind of embryonic or meristematic tissue that remain inactive over winter or prolonged dry period, that is perinating tissue. So perinating tissues, they can include buds, bulbs, tubers, roots, and seeds. So let us just write this thing also, that what is a perinating tissue. Then we will move forward. So what is a perinating tissue? Perinating tissue is can be embryonic or meristematic tissue, embryonic or meristematic that remain tissue that remain inactive over a period of time that can be winter or prolonged dry period. That is the perinating tissue. And what all things can be included in perinating tissues is buds, bulbs, tubers, roots, and seeds. Remember the word perinating. Remember that what are the perinating tissues. Okay, remember the definition. In perinating tissue, what all things you can remember: embryonic or meristematic tissue which remains inactive for a long period of time, and then the examples. Okay, now ronchiers recognize six life forms. So we are going to see ronchiers six life forms. Ronchiers six life forms. So what are these six life forms of ronchiers? We'll be writing the names and we'll be understanding each and every form. So first is phanerophytes. Phanerophytes. What are phanerophytes? Phanerophytes are trees and shrubs greater than 25 centimeter in height. In height, that have their leaf producing buds elevated above the ground or stem. So phanerophytes are trees and shrubs which are greater than 27 centimeter in height, and they have leaves producing buds elevated above the ground or stem. That is the phanerophytes. Now second life form of ronchier is cryptophytes. Cryptophytes. And how are we going to call cryptophytes? Cryptophytes are also called as geophytes. They are also called as geophytes. Now let us understand this. Geophytes are grasses which have above ground tissues that die back in winter or during prolonged dry period and survive unfavorable periods in the form of buds buried in the ground or as a bulb or rhizome. So geophyte, something is related to the budding, right? So and something is related to very cold temperature also, cry. Crypto, though the cry is coming, so you will remember cry related to the winters and geo related to something buried in the ground. So I'll give you the definition. And remember the two important things I told you. Geo is something buried into the ground, and cryptophytes, CRY, we use it for very cold temperature. So dormant in winters. Remember this definition this way. Now let us see this. Grasses which have above ground tissue but dies in winter. In winter, they cannot survive the very cold temperature. They die in winter. And during long dry periods also, they cannot manage during dry period. Thus, manage or survive this condition as buds buried in ground. This buried will be in the form of bulb or buried in ground as bulb or rhizomes. Understanding phanerophytes and cryptophytes. They are also called as geophytes. Let us highlight the words which are related to this. So height should be more than 25 centimeter when we are talking about phanerophytes. When we are saying cryptophytes, remember something is buried into the ground and something is related to the colder temperature, and that is in the form of bulb or rhizomes. Okay. Now coming to the third life form of ronchier, that is Therophytes. Therophytes. It is R. Okay, therophytes. So annuals that survive unfavorable period in the form of seed and complete their life form from seed to seed in one season are called as therophytes. They are the annual plants. Annual plants. Annual plants which survive unfavorable period as seeds and complete their life cycle from seed to seed in one season. In one season. Remember, one season is important to remember in this thing. So remember annual plants. Then remember they complete their life form in the form of seed to seed in one season. These are the therophytes. Coming to the next Ronquio's life form, that is chemiophytes. Chemiophytes. So what are chemiophytes? They are the perennial. They are the perennial shoots. They can be perennial shoots or buds, and are above the surface of ground, above the ground surface, about 25 centimeter above the ground, 25 centimeter above the ground. Now, there also we set something more than 25 centimeter, right, in phanerophytes. But there we were talking about trees and shrubs. Here in chemiophytes, we are not talking about trees or shrubs. We are talking about perennial shoots or buds. So that is the difference between your chemiophytes and phanerophytes. Okay. Now next is Hemi Kryptophytes. Hemi Kryptophytes. So what are Hemi Kryptophytes? They are the perennial shoots or buds, just like above what we have seen, shoots and buds, and are close to the surface. Are close to surface, and they are usually covered by the litter. Usually covered by litter. They are usually covered by litter. Hemi Kryptophytes. After that, so I hope you have understood that what is the difference between hemicryptophytes and cryptophytes. So cryptophytes, they are the ones which die in the winter seasons, and they do not die, but they are covered by the litter. And last category in the Ronquio's classification is epiphytes. So epiphytes is a very common word. You people know what are epiphytes. Plants that grow on the other plants with their roots up in the air are called as epiphytes. Plants that grow on other plants. Plants that grow on other plants with roots up in air. This thing you already knew, epiphytes, isn't it? So in this, what word you need to remember? Grow on other plants, epiphytes, and roots up in the air. So epiphytes. Usually epiphyte is a very common word which we see. So these are the life forms of Ronquio's classification. Now let us see that what type of life is going to exist in which kind of environment. In warmer and wet environment, what type of things are going to survive, and in colder and drier environment, what type of things are going to be there. And then some different type of situation we'll be discussing in this thing. Okay, so let us see that in warmer or wetter climates, in warmer or wetter climates, what all type of plants or community going to exist. So in warm and wetter climate, which type of communities will exist? Community with high percentage of penetrating tissue of penetrating tissue well above the ground. Well above the ground. So well above the ground, we have talked about that. That is phanerophytes. That is phanerophytes. So warmer or wetter climate, percentage of penetrating tissue well above perinating tissue well above the ground is called as phanerophytes. So it is not penetrating, it is just in slip of tongue and writing I wrote that. So it is not penetrating, but it is perinating. So we have seen the perinating word in detail till now, right? So warmer or wetter climates. So Shona is there in the class and she's saying hello ma'am. Hello Shona. So that is about the warmer or wetter climate. And then talking about the colder climate, what type of things are going to exist in colder or drier climate? Colder or drier environment or climate. So a community where most of the plants are classified as cryptophytes and hemi cryptophytes, they'll be growing in the colder and drier environment. So cryptophytes. Am I audible to you all? Please write in the comment box because there is some kind of disturbance going on around me. Just write in the comment box if you can hear me clearly. Cryptophytes and hemi cryptophytes. Now what else is left? Therophytes are left. So therophyte, they are very common in fire dominant habitats. So dominant fire dominant habitat. Fire dominant habitat. So what type of plants are going to be there? They are the therophytes. So am I audible? Please write in the comment box. So these are some of the things. After that, okay, Shona is saying you are audible, ma'am. Thank you. When species within a community are classified into the life forms and each life form is expressed as a percentage, the result is a life form spectrum that reflects the plants and adaptations to the environment, especially climate, and provides a standard means for describing the community structure. Okay, so those all things we have seen. Now we'll be seeing the vertical structure. There are many things which are actually needed to be seen in this topic. So we'll be doing this topic in two parts. First part we are doing over here, and soon I'll be making a second part also because there are many things which are included. So now we need to see the vertical structure of a community. So in community ecology, we are seeing the vertical structure. So vertical structure is determined largely by the life forms of plants, including their size, branching and leaves, which influences and is influenced by the vertical gradient of light. So what vertical structure depends on and how the vertical structure is influenced, that thing will be right. So vertical structure include size, comma, branching and leaves, which influence and is influences and influenced by vertical gradient or vertical gradient of light. Okay, so vertical structure. Now what all things are going to come in vertical structures? Vertical structures, the structure of a well developed forest has 5 layers and 6 are present in the tropical forest. So first of all we are going to see what is a canopy. Then we need to see what is a understory. Then we need to know what is a shrub layer. Then we need to know what is a herb or ground layer. Herb or ground layer. So canopy, understory, shrub layer, herb or ground layer. So what is a canopy? The primary site of the energy fixation through photosynthesis, which has major influence on rest of the forest depending on the amount of light that penetrates to the lower layer. So canopy is going to make a kind of shade. So it is the primary site of energy fixation or photosynthesis, and makes a shade to light penetration. Another thing is understory. So what is an understory? Generally all the tall shrubs and understory trees and younger trees, some of which are small, same species, and some of them are different species. So species that are unable to tolerate shade are going to die. Otherwise will eventually grow to reach maturity after some of the older trees in the canopy die or are harvested. So understory generally consists of the tall shrubs, tall shrubs and younger trees. They are the understories of the major canopy. Some of them can be of the same species or other species, and those which are unable to tolerate the shade, they are going to die. So that is the understory. Then shrub layer. It's a layer of small to medium shade tolerant shrubs. Small to medium shade tolerant shrubs. Then herb or ground layer. The nature of this layer is going to depend on the soil moisture, because that is the ground layer, and the nutrient condition directly, and the slope position, the density of the canopy, the understory, then the shrub layer, these things are going to actually affect the herb and ground layer, because that is the last or almost last layer. So these are the vertical structures, and lastly we need to know the forest floor. So what is a forest floor? The site where decomposition will occur. Decomposition site. And in this site, the decomposition will take place where the nutrients are released from the decaying organic matter for the usage for the forest plants. Now, tropical rainforest, they have one more layer. As I told you, usually there are 5 layers. Then tropical forest has 6 layers. Tropical rainforest has 6 layers. So the sixth layer is emergence. What are emergence? Emergence are trees that rise above the general canopy. Trees which rise above the general canopy. So there will be tiebreaker. There will be whole canopy layer, and above the canopy layer, those trees which are present are called as emergence. General canopy. Those are the emergence. So vertical structure of aquatic ecosystem will be determined by the light penetration and profile of temperature and oxygen. So we need to see the vertical component of the water body also. So that we will be seeing in a class that we'll be doing in the next lecture. So we'll be doing community ecology part 2. Soon we'll be doing community ecology part 2, and in soon the price are going to increase. Use my referral code FB01 for getting a 10% discount. for getting a 10% discount, and use my referral code for doing the special classes as well. Use the referral code FB01. Don't forget my referral code. And lastly, thank you to one and all for your patient listening. And we'll be back at 5 p.m. doing a very interesting topic from the GATE syllabus. And tomorrow we'll be um, doing parasitism in the CSIR class, and day after tomorrow we'll be seeing the host parasite model. So be there for these two classes. It can be very important according to the exam point of view. And there are some kids who are disturbing me from behind, so just excuse me for this disturbance. So thank you very much. A very happy new year in advance. We'll be meeting tomorrow, day after tomorrow, and for the whole coming month as well. And we'll be doing some interesting topic in CSIR and GATE syllabus as well. So let's meet there. Till then, keep on studying and be happy. Most importantly, be happy and keep on studying.